The rain-slicked streets of Manhattan gleamed under the neon glow. But for Eli Carter, the city's pulse felt like a heartbeat out of sync. At 27, he stood outside the towering glass fortress of Carter Industries. His family's legacy, knowing he'd been cast out. His crime, loving a man. Eli's breath caught as he stared at the building his grandfather built. The one his father, Richard, now ruled with an iron grip. 3 years ago, Eli had been the heir apparent, groomed to take over the multi-million-dollar real estate empire. But when he came out to his father, the man who'd once called him son, with pride turned cold. His voice sharp as a blade. No son of mine will shame this family. Eli was stripped of his title, his office, his future passed over for his younger brother, Nathan, who'd never wanted the role but took it to keep the peace. Now, standing in the drizzle, Eli's heart pounded with a mix of fury and purpose. He wasn't here to beg for forgiveness. He was here to declare war. The memory of that night still burned. Eli had sat across from his father in the mahogany-paneled study, the air thick with whiskey and tension. "You can't lead this company if you're like that," Richard had said, his eyes avoiding Eli's. "The board won't respect you. Our clients won't trust you." Eli had pleaded, not for himself, but for the years he'd poured into the company, late nights crafting deals, shaking hands with investors, proving his worth. But Richard's verdict was final. Nathan, the straight, dutiful son, would inherit the throne. Eli walked away that night with nothing but a battered suitcase and a vow. He'd build something bigger, better, something that would make Carter Industries tremble. And he had. In 3 years, Eli had clawed his way up, founding Horizon Ventures, a real estate startup that was now snapping at his family's heels. Tonight, he wasn't just Eli Carter, the disowned son. He was the man who'd just signed a deal to acquire the old Fulton property, a prime Manhattan lot Carter Industries had been chasing for years. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Jamie, his partner. "You sure you want to do this?" Eli's lips curved into a grim smile. Jamie, with his warm brown eyes and unshakable loyalty, had been his anchor through the chaos. They'd met 2 years ago at a dive bar in Brooklyn, where Jamie, a graphic designer with a quick laugh and a knack for seeing through Eli's walls, had pulled him out of his spiral of self-doubt. Jamie didn't care about empires or revenge. He cared about Eli. But Eli couldn't let this go yet. He typed back, "I have to." Then he squared his shoulders and stepped into the lobby of Carter Industries. The security guard, an old friend named Marcus, gave him a wary nod. "Eli, you sure about this?" Marcus asked, his voice low. Eli didn't answer, just strode toward the elevator. He was done hiding. The boardroom on the 40th floor was a cathedral of power-polished oak table, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city skyline. Richard sat at the head, his gray hair immaculate, his suit pristine. Nathan, only 25 but already carrying the weight of expectations, sat to his right, his face pale. The board members, a mix of old-money suits and sharp-eyed investors, murmured as Eli entered unannounced. "Eli," Richard said, his voice clipped. "This is a private meeting." "I'm not here to chat," Eli replied, his tone steady despite the storm in his chest. He tossed a folder onto the table, the papers fanning out to reveal the Fulton deal's contract signed, sealed, delivered to Horizon Ventures. Gasps rippled through the room. "You wanted that property," Eli said, locking eyes with his father. "I got it. And I'm just getting started." Richard's face reddened, but before he could speak, Nathan stood. "Eli, please. This isn't the way." His voice was soft, almost pleading, but Eli saw the flicker of guilt in his brother's eyes. Nathan hadn't wanted the company, but he'd taken it anyway, too afraid to defy their father. "You had your chance to stand up," Eli said, his voice low but cutting. "You chose his side." He turned to the board. "Carter Industries is slipping. Your stock's down 12% this year. Horizon Ventures is up 30%. You can keep betting on a dying empire, or you can start asking why your future was handed to someone who didn't earn it." The room fell silent. Richard's hands trembled as he gripped the table. "Get out," he hissed. But Eli didn't move. He'd spent years swallowing his father's rejection, letting it fester. Now, he was done. "I built Horizon from nothing," Eli said, his voice rising. "No trust fund, no family name, just me. And I'm coming for everything you thought was yours." As he turned to leave, Nathan called after him. "Eli, wait." But Eli didn't stop. The elevator doors closed, and he exhaled, his heart racing. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about proving he was more than his father's prejudice, more than the son who'd been cast aside. Back on the street, Jamie was waiting, leaning against a lamppost with a worried frown. "How'd it go?" he asked, pulling Eli into a hug. "They're rattled," Eli said, his voice softer now. "But it's not enough." "Not yet." Jamie studied him, concern etching his features. "You don't have to destroy them to prove you're enough, Eli." Eli didn't answer. He loved Jamie, but this fire in him wasn't just about love. It was about reclaiming his worth, piece by piece, deal by deal. And he was far from done. Eli's office at Horizon Ventures was a stark contrast to the opulence of Carter Industries. Tucked in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, it was all exposed brick, mismatched furniture, and a whiteboard scrawled with ideas. At 27, Eli had built this place from the ground up, fueled by grit and a refusal to fail. But tonight, as he sat at his desk, the weight of his confrontation with his father pressed against his chest. Jamie perched on the edge of the desk, his dark curls falling into his eyes as he studied Eli. "You're still thinking about that boardroom, aren't you?" he asked, his voice gentle but probing. Eli leaned back, rubbing his temples. "I thought it'd feel better," he admitted. Dropping that contract in front of them, seeing Dad's facade should have been a win. But it just didn't. Jamie reached for his hand, his touch grounding. "You're carrying too much, Eli. This fight, it's eating you up." Eli wanted to argue, to say he was fine, but Jamie's eyes held him captive. They'd been together for 2 years, and Jamie had a way of seeing through Eli's armor. "I can't stop now," Eli said finally. "If I let up, they win. Dad wins." Jamie sighed, squeezing his hand. "You already won. Horizon's killing it. You're outpacing them. Why keep poking the bear?" "Because it wasn't enough. Not yet." Eli didn't say it out loud, but the truth gnawed at him. Beating Carter Industries wasn't just about business, it was about rewriting the story his father had told him, that he was less because of who he loved. Every deal Horizon closed, every headline they stole, was a middle finger to that lie. The next morning, Eli was back in the grind. Horizon's team, a scrappy mix of young hustlers and industry veterans who'd bet on Eli's vision, crowded around the conference table. They were pitching a new project, a sustainable housing development in Queens, aimed at low-income families. It was bold, risky, and exactly the kind of move Carter Industries would never make. Richard played it safe, sticking to luxury condos and corporate leases. Eli wanted to build something that mattered. "We've got the land," Eli said, pointing to a map on the screen. But we need investors. Big ones. And we need them fast. Sarah, Horizon's CFO and a former Wall Street shark, raised an eyebrow. You're talking about going up against Carter's new waterfront project. They've got deep pockets. Eli, you sure we can pull this off? Eli met her gaze. We don't have a choice. They're bidding on the same investors. If we don't move now, they'll lock us out. The room buzzed with nervous energy. Eli's team trusted him, but they knew the stakes. Carter Industries had resources Horizon could only dream of. Still, Eli had something his father didn't: hunger. And a team that believed in him, not just his last name. That night, Eli and Jamie attended a gala to woo investors. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and egos. Manhattan's elites sipping champagne while sizing each other up. Eli, in a tailored suit Jamie had picked out, felt out of place but hid it well. Jamie, effortlessly charming, worked the room, his smile disarming even the stuffiest tycoons. See that guy? Jamie whispered, nodding toward a silver-haired man in a tux. That's Victor Lang. Old money, big influence. If you get him on board, others will follow. Eli nodded, steeling himself. He approached Victor, who was mid-conversation with none other than Nathan. His brother looked uncomfortable, his tie slightly askew, but he was playing the part of the dutiful heir. When Nathan saw Eli, his eyes widened. Eli, Nathan said, his voice tight. Didn't expect you here. Business doesn't stop for family drama, Eli replied, keeping his tone light but sharp. He turned to Victor. Mr. Lang, I'm Eli Carter, CEO of Horizon Ventures. I'd love to talk about our new project in Queens. Victor's eyes flicked between the brothers, sensing the tension. Carter, huh? I know your father's work. Why should I bet on you instead? Eli didn't flinch. Because Carter Industries builds for profit. Horizon builds for people. Our Queens project will house hundreds of families, sustainably, at a fraction of market rates. It's a legacy worth investing in. Victor raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Nathan shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. As Eli walked away, he felt Nathan's eyes on him, a mix of admiration and regret. For a moment, Eli wondered what might have been if Nathan had stood up to their father years ago. But that was a dream for another life. Back at their apartment, Jamie poured 2 glasses of wine. You were a rock star tonight, he said, clinking his glass against Eli's. Victor's interested. I could tell. Eli smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Nathan was there. He looked lost. Jamie set his glass down, his expression softening. He's your brother, Eli. Maybe he's hurting too. Eli shook his head. He made his choice. He stayed. And you left, Jamie said gently. But you're still carrying him with you. Maybe it's time to let some of that go. Eli wanted to argue, but Jamie's words hit too close. He'd built Horizon to prove a point, but the cost was a constant IKEA family fractured, a brother he still loved but couldn't reach. As Jamie pulled him close, Eli let himself lean into the warmth, just for a moment. Tomorrow, the fight would continue. The Queens project was Horizon's gamble, and Eli was all in. At 27, he'd learned to trust his instincts, but the stakes were higher than ever. Carter Industries had caught wind of Horizon's plans and was now aggressively courting the same investors, dangling promises of quick profits from their waterfront condos. Eli couldn't match their cash flow, but he could outsmart them. He had to. In Horizon's war room, the team worked late, fueled by coffee and ambition. Sarah pored over financial projections while Malik, the head of design, sketched renderings of eco-friendly buildings. Eli paced, his mind racing. "We need something to tip the scales," he said. "Something Carter can't copy." Malik looked up, his eyes bright. "What if we partner with a nonprofit? Get community buy-in. Show investors we're not just in it for the money." Eli nodded, the idea sparking. "Do it. Find a local group with clout. We'll pitch it as a public-private partnership." As the team scrambled, Eli's phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. "Can we talk?" "Alone?" Eli stared at the screen, his gut twisting. He hadn't spoken to Nathan outside of tense run-ins since the fallout with their father. Part of him wanted to ignore it, but another part, the part that remembered late-night talks with his brother, before everything broke, calmed. They met at a quiet diner in Midtown, the kind of place where nobody cared who you were. Nathan looked older than his 25 years. His shoulders slumped under the weight of a role he'd never wanted. "Dad's losing it," Nathan said, stirring his coffee. "He's obsessed with crushing Horizon. It's personal now." Eli leaned back, arms crossed. "It's always been personal. He made it personal when he kicked me out." Nathan flinched. "I didn't want this, Eli. I told him to give you a chance. He wouldn't listen." "You didn't fight for me," Eli said, his voice low but sharp. "You took the job. You stood by him." Nathan's eyes glistened. "I was scared. I still am. He's not the man we thought he was. But I'm stuck, Eli. I can't just walk away like you did." Eli wanted to feel pity, but anger surged instead. "You're not stuck, Nathan. You're choosing to stay. There's a difference." Nathan looked down, his hands trembling. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have done more. I should have been braver." For a moment, Eli's resolve wavered. He saw the boy who'd once idolized him, the brother who'd snuck him extra cookies when their mother wasn't looking. But the hurt was too deep. "I don't need your apology," Eli said, standing. "I need you to stop playing the victim and start making choices." Back at Horizon, the team had found a partner, a local nonprofit focused on affordable housing. The pitch was coming together, but Eli's encounter with Nathan left him rattled. He threw himself into work, reviewing proposals until his eyes burned. Jamie found him there at midnight, head in his hands. "You saw Nathan, didn't you?" Jamie asked, sitting beside him. Eli nodded, his throat tight. "He's sorry. But it doesn't change anything." Jamie rested a hand on Eli's back. "It doesn't have to. You're building something amazing here. Don't let the past pull you under." Eli looked at Jamie, his anchor in the storm. "What if I'm doing this for the wrong reasons? What if it's all just to hurt them?" Jamie smiled softly. "You're not that guy, Eli. You're building homes for people who need them. That's not revenge if that's purpose." The words steadied him. The next day, Eli and his team pitched to Victor Lang and a group of investors. The room was tense, with Carter Industries' shadow looming large. Eli stood tall, his voice steady as he laid out Horizon's vision: sustainable homes, community partnerships, a legacy that served people, not just profits. Victor leaned forward, his sharp eyes locked on Eli. "Your father's pitching luxury towers," Victor said. "Safe bet. Why should we risk our money on you?" Eli didn't hesitate. "Because safe bets don't change the world. Carter Industries is stuck in the past, building for the 1%. Horizon's building for the future, for families, for communities, for the city we all want to live in. The room was silent for a moment. Then Victor nodded. I'm in. Let's talk numbers. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. Horizon had secured its first major investor. As the team celebrated, Eli felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Jamie was right, maybe this was about more than revenge. But when his phone buzzed with a news alert, Carter Industries announces aggressive expansion, the fire in his chest reignited. Richard wasn't backing down, and neither would Eli. That night, as he lay beside Jamie, Eli couldn't sleep. The fight was far from over, and the cost was mounting, not just for him, but for everyone he loved. He glanced at Jamie, peaceful in sleep, and made a silent promise. He'd build something unstoppable, not just to win, but to protect what mattered most. The Queen's project was gaining traction, but Eli knew Carter Industries wouldn't let Horizon's rise go unanswered. At 27, he'd learned to anticipate his father's moves. Richard played dirty when cornered. Sure enough, a week after Victor Lang's commitment, rumors surfaced. Carter Industries was spreading whispers that Horizon's financials were shaky, its leadership unstable. Eli's team was furious, but he stayed calm. He'd expected this. We counter with transparency, Eli told his team. Open our books to key investors. Show them we're solid. Sarah hesitated. That's risky, Eli. If they dig too deep, they'll see we're stretched thin. We're stretched because we're growing, Eli shot back. They'll see ambition, not weakness. Trust me. The team moved fast, preparing a detailed report for investors. Meanwhile, Eli worked the phones, reassuring partners and charming skeptics. But the stress was wearing him down. Late nights bled into early mornings, and even Jamie's steady presence couldn't fully ease the strain. One evening, as Eli pored over spreadsheets, Jamie dragged him out for a walk along the Brooklyn waterfront. The city skyline glittered across the river, a reminder of what was at stake. You're killing yourself over this, Jamie said, his voice firm. You need to breathe. Eli stopped, the cold air biting his face. I can't slow down, Jamie. If I do, Dad wins. He'll bury us. Jamie grabbed his arm, turning him to face him. You're not fighting just him anymore. You're fighting yourself. You've already proved you're better than he ever gave you credit for. Why isn't that enough? Eli's chest tightened. Jamie's words cut deep because they were true. He'd built Horizon to show his father he was wrong, but somewhere along the way, it had become about proving it to himself. And that was a harder battle. Before he could respond, his phone rang. It was Nathan. Against his better judgment, Eli answered. What do you want? Dad's planning something, Nathan said, his voice low. Urgent. He's meeting with the City Planning Commission tomorrow. I think he's trying to block your Queen's permits. Eli's blood ran cold. Without those permits, the project was dead. Why are you telling me this? He asked, suspicion lacing his voice. Nathan hesitated. Because I'm tired of being his pawn. And because you're my brother. Eli hung up, his mind racing. He didn't trust Nathan fully, but the tip was too specific to ignore. He called Sarah and Malik, rallying the team for an all-nighter. They dug into the city's permitting process, looking for leverage. By dawn, they'd found it, a loophole in the zoning laws that favored community-driven projects like Horizon's. If they could present their case to the commission first, they might outmaneuver Richard. The next day, Eli stood before the city planning commission, his heart pounding. Richard was there too, flanked by lawyers, his face a mask of confidence. Eli pitched Horizon's vision with passion, emphasizing the community partnership and the families who'd benefit. When it was Richard's turn, he leaned on his usual playbook: prestige, profit, power. But the commissioners seemed swayed by Eli's argument, their questions sharp but fair. As the meeting ended, Richard approached Eli, his voice low. "You think you can take me down with this stunt? You're out of your league, boy." Eli met his father's gaze, unflinching. "I'm not your boy anymore. And I'm not playing your game, I am changing it." Richard's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, storming out with his entourage. Eli felt a rush of adrenaline, but it was tempered by exhaustion. He'd won this round, but the war was far from over. That night, Jamie cooked dinner pasta with homemade sauce, a rare moment of normalcy. As they ate, Eli opened up about Nathan's call. "I don't know if I can trust him," he admitted. "But he sounded different." Jamie twirled his fork, thoughtful. "Maybe he's finally seeing what you've known all along, that your dad's wrong about you. About a lot of things." Eli wanted to believe it, but trust was hard-won. Still, Nathan's warning had saved them. Maybe there was a chance to rebuild something with his brother, even if it was just a sliver of what they'd lost. The next week was a blur of meetings and negotiations. Horizon secured the permits, and more investors signed on, drawn by the project's momentum. But Carter Industries wasn't done. A new article hit the press, accusing Horizon of cutting corners on safety standards. Eli knew it was a lie, but the damage was done. Investors were spooked. "We need to hit back," Sarah said, slamming the article on the table. "Go public. Call them out." Eli shook his head. "No. We stay focused. We prove them wrong by building something they can't touch." As he spoke, his phone buzzed again. Another text from Nathan. "I found proof Dad's behind the article. I can help." Eli stared at the message, torn. Accepting Nathan's help meant risking betrayal, but refusing it might cost him everything. He typed back, "Meet me tomorrow. Bring everything." Eli barely slept, his mind tangled with Nathan's offer. At 27, he'd learned to guard his trust, but his brother's words lingered. "I can help." If Nathan was telling the truth, it could expose Richard's dirty tactics. If he was lying, Eli was walking into a trap. Either way, he had to know. They met at a park bench in Central Park, far from prying eyes. Nathan looked nervous, clutching a manila envelope. "This is everything," he said, handing it over. Emails between Dad and the reporter who wrote that hit piece. He paid to plant the story. Eli flipped through the documents, his pulse quickening. The emails were damning Richard, instructing the reporter to bury Horizon with fabricated safety concerns. "Why are you doing this?" Eli asked, his voice edged with suspicion. Nathan's shoulders sagged. "I'm tired, Eli. Tired of Dad's games. Tired of pretending I'm someone I'm not. I don't want to run his company. I never did." Eli studied his brother, searching for a lie. At 25, Nathan looked like a man carrying a decade's worth of regret. "Then why stay?" Eli asked. "Why not walk away?" "Because I thought I could fix things," Nathan said, his voice breaking. "I thought if I did what he wanted, he'd, I don't know, see me. But he doesn't. And he never saw you, either." Eli's throat tightened. For the first time in years, he saw his brother, not the heir who'd taken his place, but the kid who'd once looked up to him. If you're serious, Eli said, help me take him down. Not just for me, for everyone he's hurt. Nathan nodded, a spark of resolve in his eyes. I'm in. Back at Horizon, Eli shared the emails with Sarah and Malik. We leaked this, Sarah said, her eyes gleaming. The press will eat it up. Carter Industries will take a hit. Eli hesitated. Going public would humiliate his father, but it would also drag Nathan into the fallout. Let's hold off, he said. We use this as leverage. Get Richard to back off. Sarah frowned. You're going soft, Eli. This is our chance to end it. It's not about going soft, Eli snapped. It's about doing this right. If we play dirty like him, what's the difference between us? The team agreed, reluctantly. Eli drafted a letter to Richard, attaching copies of the emails. The message was clear: back off Horizon, or the emails go public. He sent it, his heart pounding. It was a gamble, but he was betting on his father's fear of exposure. Days later, Richard responded not with words, but with action. Carter Industries pulled their competing bid for the Queen's investors, citing strategic shifts. Eli's team celebrated, but he remained wary. Richard didn't retreat unless he had a bigger plan. That night, Jamie noticed Eli's tension. You don't trust this Wen, do you? He asked, pouring coffee as they sat in their cramped kitchen. Dad doesn't give up, Eli said. He's plotting something. I can feel it. Jamie reached across the table, his hand warm on Eli's. You've got Nathan on your side now. That's something. Maybe it's time to start believing people can change. Eli wanted to, but doubt clung to him. Nathan's betrayal had cut deep, and even now, part of him wondered if his brother's help was genuine. Still, the emails were real, and they'd given Horizon breathing room. For now, that was enough. The Queen's project moved forward, breaking ground with a small ceremony. Eli stood beside community leaders, shovel in hand, as cameras flashed. The nonprofit partnership had drawn praise, and Horizon's stock was climbing. But as Eli smiled for the cameras, he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure in the crowd: Richard, watching from a distance, his face unreadable. Eli's stomach churned. He hadn't seen his father since the commission meeting, and Richard's presence here wasn't a coincidence. As the ceremony ended, Eli approached him, ignoring the knot in his chest. What are you doing here? He asked. Richard's eyes were cold, but there was something else: fatigue. Maybe. Seeing what you're building, he said. You've got nerve. I'll give you that. Save it, Eli said. If you're here to sabotage us, I've got those emails ready to send. Richard's jaw tightened. You think you've won? This city's bigger than your little project. You'll burn out, Eli. You always do. The words stung, but Eli held his ground. I'm not the one running scared. You're losing, Dad. And you know it. Richard turned and walked away, leaving Eli with a mix of triumph and unease. Back at the site, Jamie pulled him aside. You okay? He asked, his voice soft. Eli nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Richard's words, could he'll burn out, and for the first time, Eli wondered if he was right. He was pouring everything into Horizon, into this fight. What would be left of him when it was over? As the sun set over the construction site, Eli made a decision. He'd keep fighting, but not just to win. He'd fight for the families who'd live in these homes. For Jamie. For himself. And maybe, just maybe, for the brother who was finally trying to make things right. The Queen's project was on track, but Eli's victory felt fragile. At 27, he'd learned that every step forward came with a shadow waiting to pull him back. Richard's retreat from the investor bid was too clean, too quiet. Eli knew his father, and silence meant scheming. Horizon's office buzzed with activity blueprints pinned to walls, phones ringing, team members shouting ideas across the room. Eli thrived in the chaos, but today, his focus wavered. Nathan's betrayal and redemption weighed on him, as did Richard's cryptic appearance at the groundbreaking. He needed to stay sharp, but doubt was creeping in. Jamie noticed, as always. Over dinner at their favorite Thai spot, he pushed a plate of pad CEW toward Eli. "You're spiraling again," Jamie said, his tone half teasing, half serious. "Talk to me." Eli poked at his food, the spicy aroma doing little to lift his mood. "Dad's up to something. I don't know what, but I can't shake the feeling we're walking into a trap." Jamie leaned forward, his brown eyes steady. "You've got the emails. You've got Nathan. You've got a team that'd follow you into hell. Whatever Richard's planning, you're stronger than he thinks." Eli managed a half smile. Jamie's faith in him was a lifeline, but it couldn't erase the fear that he was fighting a losing battle not against his father, but against the part of himself that still craved his approval. The next morning, the blow came. A major investor, Clara Reyes, pulled out of the Queen's project, citing concerns about leadership stability. Eli's team was blindsided. Clara had been a vocal supporter, swayed by Horizon's community focus. Sarah slammed her laptop shut. "This has Richard written all over it. He's poisoning the well." Eli's jaw clenched. He called Clara, but she was evasive, her answers vague. "It's just business, Eli," she said before hanging up. Furious, he reached out to Nathan. "What do you know about Clara Reyes?" He texted. Nathan's reply was swift. "Meet me now." They rendezvoused at a coffee shop in Soho, Nathan's face pale as he slid into the booth. "Dad got to her," he said. "He's been meeting with investors behind closed doors, offering them stakes in a new Carter project, some luxury resort in Miami. He's framing it as a safer bet than Horizon." Eli's hands balled into fists. "And you didn't think to warn me?" "I just found out," Nathan said, his voice pleading. "He's keeping me in the dark too. But I heard him talking to his lawyer about a bigger play, something about leveraging city contracts to freeze your permits." Eli's blood ran cold. If Richard controlled the city's contracts, he could stall Horizon's projects indefinitely. "I need more than hearsay," Eli said. "Get me proof." Nathan nodded, his eyes resolute. "I'll try." Back at Horizon, Eli rallied the team. They couldn't wait for Nathan's intel, they had to act. Malik suggested a bold move, a public campaign to highlight the Queen's project's impact. "We go straight to the people," he said. "Show them what we're about. Richard can't buy public opinion." The team launched a social media blitz, sharing stories of the families who'd benefit from the housing. Local news picked it up, and soon, Horizon was trending. Eli spoke at a community rally, his voice carrying over the crowd. "This isn't just about buildings," he said. "It's about giving people a home, a future. That's what Horizon stands for." The crowd cheered, but Eli's heart was heavy. He was fighting for something bigger, but the personal cost was mounting. Jamie joined him after the rally, slipping his hand into Eli's. "You were incredible out there," he said. "But you're carrying too much alone." Eli squeezed his hand. "I'm not alone. I've got you." Jamie's smile was bittersweet. Yeah, but I'm worried you're losing yourself in this. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, not your dad. Not the world. Eli didn't reply. He wanted to believe Jamie, but the fire in him burned too hot. That night, Nathan came through, slipping Eli a USB drive with recordings of Richard's conversations with city officials. He's bribing them, Nathan said, his voice shaking. Small favors, but enough to sway decisions. Eli listened to the recordings, his stomach churning. Richard's voice was calm, calculated, offering perks to secure votes against Horizon's permits. It was the proof Eli needed, but using it meant exposing his father and dragging Nathan deeper into the fallout. He confronted Richard the next day, meeting him at Carter Industries' penthouse office. I've got recordings, Eli said, holding up the USB. You're done. Richard's face didn't change. You think you can blackmail me? You're still the same weak boy who begged for my approval. Eli's voice was steel. I'm not begging anymore. Step off Horizon, or these go public. For the first time, Richard looked shaken. You'd destroy your own family. You destroyed us first, Eli said, turning to leave. As he walked out, he felt no triumph, only a hollow ache. He was winning, but at what cost? Eli held the USB drive like a grenade, its weight heavier than its size. At 27, he'd fought for every inch of Horizon's success. But this exposing his father's corruption felt like crossing a line he couldn't uncross. He sat in his office, staring at the drive, Jamie's words echoing, "You're losing yourself in this." Nathan's evidence was a game changer, but using it meant burning bridges not just with Richard, but with the family name Eli still carried. He called Nathan, who sounded drained. If you use those recordings, Nathan said, Dad's finished. And I'm out too. Eli's grip tightened on the phone. You knew that when you gave them to me. I know, Nathan said. But he's still our dad. Eli ended the call, his head spinning. He loved Nathan, despite everything, and the thought of dragging his brother down with Richard twisted his gut. But Horizon was on the line, hundreds of jobs, thousands of families counting on the Queen's project. He couldn't back down. Jamie found him later, hunched over his desk. You're going to do it, aren't you? He asked, his voice soft but heavy. Eli nodded. I don't have a choice. If I don't, he'll keep coming for us. Jamie sat beside him, his hand resting on Eli's knee. You always have a choice. You can win this without becoming him. The words hit hard. Eli had spent years fighting to prove he was more than his father's rejection. But what if this fight was turning him into the same kind of man, ruthless, consumed by victory? He pushed the thought aside. There was no time for doubt. The next day, Eli met with a journalist from a major outlet, someone known for taking down corporate giants. He handed over the recordings, his heart pounding. This stays anonymous, he said. No names. The journalist nodded, her eyes sharp. This'll shake the city. You sure you're ready for the fallout? Eli wasn't, but he nodded anyway. Within days, the story broke. Carter Industries CEO caught in bribery scandal. The headlines were merciless, detailing Richard's attempts to manipulate city contracts. Carter Industries' stock plummeted, and investors fled. Eli watched the chaos unfold from Horizon's office, his team stunned but triumphant. Sarah slapped a newspaper on the table. You did it, Eli. They're done. But Eli didn't feel like celebrating. Nathan wasn't answering his calls, and the news had painted the entire Carter family as toxic. Eli's name was kept out of it, but the guilt gnawed at him. He'd won, but he'd also shattered what was left of his family. That night, Jamie dragged him to a quiet bar, forcing him to step away from the chaos. "You need to stop punishing yourself," Jamie said, sliding a beer across the table. "You didn't make your dad do those things. He chose that." Eli stared at the bottle, his voice low. "But I chose to expose him. Nathan's caught in the crossfire." Jamie leaned closer, his voice firm. "Nathan made his choice too. He helped you because he believes in you. Don't take that away from him." Eli wanted to argue, but Jamie's words anchored him. He'd spent so long fighting for his own worth that he'd forgotten what it meant to trust others. Nathan had risked everything to help him. Maybe it was time to start rebuilding, not just destroying. The next morning, Eli found Nathan waiting outside Horizon's office, his face drawn but determined. "I'm out," Nathan said. "I quit Carter Industries. Dad's stepping down as CEO, and I don't want any part of it." Eli's heart sank. "Nathan, I didn't want this for you." "I know," Nathan said, managing a small smile. "But you were right. I was hiding, letting Dad control me. I want to be more than that." Eli hesitated, then pulled his brother into a hug, the first in years. "Come work with me," he said. "Horizon could use you." Nathan's eyes widened. "You mean that?" "Yeah," Eli said, his voice thick. "We're family. We figure it out together." As Nathan nodded, Eli felt a weight lift. The fight wasn't over. Carter Industries was wounded, not dead, and Richard would likely regroup. But for the first time, Eli wasn't alone. He had Jamie, his team, and now, maybe, his brother. That evening, Eli stood on the Queen's site, watching cranes move against the skyline. The project was alive, a testament to everything he'd fought for. Jamie joined him, slipping an arm around his waist. "Proud of you," he murmured. Eli leaned into him, the city's hum a quiet backdrop. "I'm not done yet," he said. "But I'm starting to see what's worth fighting for." The fallout from the scandal settled like dust over Manhattan. Carter Industries teetered, its board scrambling to salvage what was left. Richard stepped down as CEO, replaced by a corporate suit with no Carter blood. At 27, Eli watched his father's empire crack from Horizon's office. But the victory tasted bitter. He'd won, but the cost was a family in ruins. Nathan joined Horizon, tentative at first, his skills in marketing a surprising asset. At 25, he was finding his footing, free from Richard's shadow. Eli gave him space, letting him earn his place. Their bond was fragile, built on years of hurt, but it was a start. Late nights at the office became less about war and more about creation, as the brothers worked side by side on the Queen's project. The project itself was a beacon of hope. Families moved into the first completed units, their gratitude humbling. At a ribbon-cutting ceremony, Eli stood beside community leaders, his voice steady as he spoke. "This isn't just about homes," he said. "It's about proving that everyone deserves a chance to build a life." The crowd applauded, but Eli's eyes found Jamie in the front row, his smile a quiet anchor. Later, as they walked through the new neighborhood, Jamie laced his fingers through Eli's. "You did this," he said. "Not to beat your dad, but because it's who you are." Eli stopped, pulling Jamie close. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You kept me grounded when I wanted to burn everything down." Jamie laughed softly. Someone had to. You're stubborn as hell. The moment was interrupted by a text from Sarah. Check the news. Now. Eli's stomach dropped as he opened the link. Carter Industries had been acquired by a rival conglomerate, its name erased from the skyline. Richard was gone, retired to some estate upstate, a shadow of the titan he'd been. Eli should have felt triumphant, but instead, he felt hollow. He'd spent years fighting to prove his father wrong. But now, with Carter Industries gone, the fight seemed distant. What was left was Horizon and the life he was building with Jamie, Nathan, and his team. Weeks later, Eli received a letter from Richard. No return address, just a single page in his father's sharp handwriting. You were always stronger than I gave you credit for. I was wrong. No apology, no warmth, but it was the closest Richard had ever come to admitting fault. Eli read it once, then tucked it away. He didn't need his father's validation anymore. He'd built Horizon not just to rival Carter Industries, but to create something meaningful, a legacy of inclusion, resilience, and love. The Queen's project was proof, homes for families, a team that believed in him, a partner who saw him, a brother who'd found his way back. One evening, Eli and Jamie hosted a small gathering at their apartment. Nathan was there, joking with Malik and Sarah, his laughter lighter than Eli had heard in years. The team toasted to Horizon's success, but Eli raised his glass to something more. To family, he said, his eyes meeting Nathan's, then Jamie's. The one we choose, and the one we fight for. As the night wound down, Eli stepped onto the balcony, the city sprawling below. Jamie joined him, wrapping an arm around his waist. You okay? He asked. Eli nodded, his heart full. Yeah. For the first time, I think I really am. The skyline glittered, a canvas of possibility. Horizon Ventures was no longer just a rival, it was a force, reshaping the city one project at a time. Eli had been passed over for who he was, but he'd built something greater because of it. Not just a company, but a life rooted in love, purpose, and the courage to be himself. And that, he realized, was the true victory.